Number 9. A poisonous plan. Like many young women, Ella Perry struggled with her body image, but the British student's insecurities became all-consuming in ways that not everyone experiences. Her weight was perfectly healthy according to medical standards, but Ella despised her body. By the time she turned 21, her obsession with losing weight had completely taken over her life. In a desperate bid to shed fat that only existed in her mind, Ella went online and bought some diet pills that contained a toxic substance called denatrophenol, or DNP. It's similar to the explosive TNT and is considered unsafe for human consumption. But the pills seemed to work, and it felt harmless to take more and more of them. Then one day in 2015, Ella began to feel sick. She drove to the emergency room, where doctors discovered fatal levels of DNP in her body. Because there's no antidote to the substance, all they could do was try to stabilize the young woman, while fate took its course. Medical staff did their best to save Ella's life, but their efforts were in vain. Her metabolism spiked wildly, while her body overheated. The diet pills were burning her up from the inside out. Less than 3 hours after taking the deadly dose, Ella stopped breathing. She was placed on a ventilator, and then her heart stopped beating. In light of the needless tragedy, government officials pleaded with the public to use utmost caution when buying diet pills online, and to make sure they're ordering an approved product. Number 8. The Cotton Ball Diet. Thanks to the internet, almost any information somebody could want is at their fingertips. It's a great resource, but the World Wide Web is also sometimes the worst place for a vulnerable or desperate person to turn to for advice. Take, for example, the cotton ball diet, which involves suppressing one's appetite by eating up to 5 cotton balls soaked in juice per sitting. The diet reportedly emerged in the modeling industry, but it was heavily promoted by internet users who took to YouTube and message boards to boast about their success with it. But eating cotton balls is extremely dangerous and potentially deadly, and medical professionals were quick to speak out against it. For one, most cotton balls aren't made of cotton, but of bleached polyester fibers, and they contain lots of chemicals. Secondly, the human body cannot digest cotton balls, so they accumulate inside the digestive tract and block food and liquids from passing through. This can be life-threatening, and removing the mass could require surgery. Several experiments pointed out in media interviews that eating cotton balls is not a diet, it's disordered eating, and the only kind of cotton anyone should be eating is cotton candy. Thankfully, we couldn't find any example of this bizarre fad taking anyone's life. Number 7. Raw reality. Raw diets are pretty self-explanatory. As the name implies, it involves eating no-cooked foods. A raw diet typically consists of fruits, vegetables, and nuts, and it's extremely hard for a person to get enough nutrition this way. A writer for PaleoLeap reported feeling great for the first few weeks of his raw diet, but then he started feeling sick and tired all the time. He stuck with the diet for 7 miserable months, during which time he became severely underweight. His skin began to flake, his teeth loosened, and he became diabetic. Convinced that he would die if he continued with the raw diet for much longer, the man finally called it quits. Thankfully, he recovered from the ordeal. At the very least, a raw diet leads to malnutrition, which can bring on a host of serious issues and could even kill a person. And it's bad enough when someone's misguided beliefs negatively impacts their health, but it's even worse when innocent bystanders are harmed. Number 6. Deadly diet pills. Anyone who struggled with weight loss and/or body image knows what it's like to feel so desperate they try just about anything to achieve their desired weight. Amber Girling of Chatham, England, weighed a healthy 126 pounds when her classmates began picking on her curvy figure at age 17. She tried to lose weight, but it wasn't coming off fast enough with standard dieting and exercising, so she started taking diet pills. In the meantime, Amber ramped up her fitness routine and cut her food intake to just 200 calories per day. Soon enough, she was taking a combination of 4 different pills, totaling 90 capsules per week. Her skin turned yellow, and she suffered from excruciating stomach pains, but by then, she was addicted and had no plans to stop. Amber's sister finally convinced her to go to the hospital. At just 56 pounds, she was literally reduced to skin and bones. She spent 5 months receiving treatment for her eating disorder and regained both her health and some much-needed weight. Amber emerged from the ordeal looking as vibrant as ever. In hindsight, she understands how close she was to death's doorstep. Since her recovery, she's used her story as a platform for speaking out against the dangers of deadly diet pills. Number 5. Soy sauce cleanse. A few years ago, internet users began promoting a soy sauce colon cleanse, which involved drinking a liter of soy sauce in under 2 hours. People claim that the soy sauce purged the body of toxins. It sounds crazy, but one woman, known as only CG, was daring enough to try it, and the results were tragic. In the 3 weeks leading up to the cleanse, the 39-year-old lost 24 pounds, and for several months before that, she had only been eating canned fish and white bread. In addition to her preoccupation with her weight, she suffered from schizophrenia and had recently been released from a psych ward. Acting on the paranoid belief that the government had poisoned her, CG guzzled down an entire liter of soy sauce. Her heart began to beat really fast, and she resisted the urge to drink water, even though soy sauce is extremely high in sodium and can dehydrate the body. The woman's condition worsened from there. She collapsed and went into cardiac arrest while being rushed to the hospital. Doctors determined that she was suffering from extremely high salt levels in her blood, a condition called acute hypernatremia, and the soy sauce was to blame. A doctor who discussed the case explained that CG's stomach had filled with salt and began sucking the moisture out of her organs and muscles. It even caused her brain to shrink, which can cause permanent damage. He also mentioned that CG shouldn't have been able to drink an entire liter of soy sauce without vomiting, but perhaps her ailing mind enabled her to do so. In other words, it was clear that the woman was mentally separated from reality. Doctors tried to rehydrate CG, but the damage was done. She stopped being able to move, swallow, or speak, and became brain dead. Number 4. Death by apple cider vinegar. Lindsay Bone was a 20-year-old criminology student with a promising future. She lived in Brighton, England, while studying at the University of Sussex, and was engaged to be married. But the young woman's life was abruptly cut short one day in 2019 when her flatmates found her unresponsive in her bedroom. Lindsay's blood had a high but not fatal acidity level, and there were no other unusual substances in her system. The coroner was unable to determine a cause of death and described the tragedy as a mystery. Lindsay's mother is convinced that Lindsay's extreme dieting habits killed her. In the time leading up to her death, she followed a strict regimen of fasting and regularly taking apple cider vinegar tablets, which act as an appetite suppressant. An investigator who visited Lindsay's room found a journal with a list of harsh self-imposed dieting rules, including eating little to no carbs and limiting herself to 1,200 calories per day. She had eaten very little on the day she died, but still appeared healthy during her autopsy. Although the cause of death remains officially undetermined, the tragedy inspired Lindsay's mother to speak up and warn young women about the dangers of extreme dieting. Number 3. The untold dangers of keto. In late 2020, the Times of India announced the untimely death of 27-year-old Bollywood actress Mishti Mukherjee. Her friends and family said that she had passed away at a hospital from kidney failure brought on by the popular keto diet. The ketogenic diet is a low-carb, high-fat regimen similar to the Atkins diet. It involves replacing almost all of a person's carbohydrate intake with fats, which propels the dieter into a metabolic state called ketosis. The body becomes incredibly efficient at burning fat for energy instead of carbs, and it's safe for most people, but there are some exceptions. Doing keto long-term can have adverse health effects and put stress on the kidneys. Experts recommend treating it as a short-term plan, and for people with kidney problems to be extra cautious and to consult with their doctor about the diet. The details surrounding Mukherjee's death are vague and don't explain exactly how her eating habits cut her life short, leading some people to wonder if keto was truly the culprit. But, just like with any diet, it's a good idea to know what you're getting into and what the risks are. And the diet itself is not always to blame for a person's ailments. Someone on the World List team had a personal experience with the ill effects of keto when her partner became constipated for days on end. He was doing a variation of the diet known as dirty or lazy keto, where he was eating highly processed fatty foods with little nutritional value. She convinced him to go to the emergency room after his boss found him doubled over in excruciating pain and sent him home from work. And she thought that maybe her partner had finally learned a lesson about his dangerous dieting. But the doctor prescribed a laxative, and instead of changing his eating habits, he began to abuse the medicine. This just goes to show that when somebody has an unhealthy obsession with their weight, they'll stop at nothing to continue shedding the pounds. Number 2. Dehydration diet. You can probably already tell, based on the name alone, that the dehydration diet doesn't end well for most people. In 2017, an aspiring 18-year-old Muay Thai fighter from Australia named Jessica Lindsay purposely dehydrated herself in order to lose weight for a competition. 6 days before the event, she did something called water loading, which involved drinking huge amounts of water at first, then decreasing the amount to none. Jessica hadn't drank any water on the day she went for her weigh-in. She collapsed after hours of intensive training and was rushed to the hospital. An autopsy found that she died from hyperthermia, or overheating, and dehydration. The coroner said that Jessica was unaware that she was in mortal danger and that she thought she had control of the situation. Her untimely death sparked outcries for a change in sports culture and laws. It's apparently common for athletes to deliberately dehydrate in order to lose weight, and sports officials were accused of turning a blind eye to this and other extreme weight-cutting practices. People also called for more education on detecting the signs of someone going too far to make weight, as well as more oversight of trainers who prepare athletes for competitions. Jessica's grieving family is on board with these causes and hopes that people will help raise awareness and urge authorities to enact tighter regulations. And number 1, a diabetic disaster. In 2016, a couple brought their 6-year-old son, Aiden Fenton, to an alternative healing workshop in Sydney, Australia, in hopes of curing his diabetes. The week-long treatment involved slapping and stretching therapy, also known as PIDA-LAGIN. This is when a person is slapped repeatedly and assumes different poses to stretch their skin. That doesn't sound very healthy to me, but I'm no expert. At the beginning of the workshop, the instruction reportedly told Aiden's parents that taking insulin equated to drug addiction, so the couple stopped giving their son his life-saving medication. For the next several days, Aiden only ate and drank water and ginger. He eventually began vomiting black and yellow substances, which the instructor said was good for him. The ailing child lost his ability to walk, his eyes turned yellow, and his skin grew cold. He was suffering from something called diabetic ketoacidosis, and he ended up dying from it. Aiden's parents were charged with manslaughter. They argued in court that they believed the instructor was a doctor, so they didn't question his methods. The tragedy highlighted the controversial nature of PIDA-LAGIN, which experts claim has no medical or scientific basis, but many people argue that it has therapeutic benefits, and some even swear by it. Thanks for watching. Have you ever tried an extreme diet? Did it work? Let us know in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss part 2. See you next time.